and welcome to ConTinual, the con that never ends. We're here tonight for an hour with the amazing Darynda Jones. Welcome, Darynda.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So glad to have you. I have been in love with your books since I read First Grave on the right after it won the Golden Heart. I heard about it and couldn't wait for it to be published. And you and I are both Golden Heart finalists. I finaled in 2006 and you finaled in 2009. Of course, for those of you who do not know, the Golden Heart was an RWA award that now no longer exists. Alas. So our little gold hearts on our name tags are now historical relics, right?
Yeah, right. Right. Worth a lot.
Tell me how you got your start. What made you start writing at all? What made you start writing books like this? How'd you get your start?
Okay, well, so I started writing when I was about 5. I'm one of those. I've just always made up stories. From the time I was little. I wrote everything I could growing up. I wrote plays and short stories and song lyrics and poems, whatever, anything, news articles, anything. In high school, I started my first manuscript. My best friend and I, Danielle, would go to Tasty Freeze every day after school and write for hours. We would take up a whole corner booth. And of course, we wrote longhand, and this was back in the day before laptops. And they hated us because we were poor. And, we could only afford a Coke, and we'd take up a whole booth for an entire afternoon every single day. But yeah, it's like the best time of my life, Then we graduated high school. I met my husband. I had 2 kids. Then I ended up going to college later. I was a non-traditional student. My oldest son was born deaf. Ended up moving to Albuquerque to put him in school, and I went to school, and everybody was in school. I took my 2 sons, and then my husband and I, we did this for 7 years. We went back and forth every weekend for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
Finally graduated and got to move back and actually live with my husband again. So
yay!
We're going on 37 years now. So
awesome! Congratulations!
And yeah, but it was like the minute I graduated, that writing bug, because I had always been writing, and then when I went to college, I kind of had to stop. I had to stop reading fiction and writing because I didn't want to do anything else. I didn't want to do my homework or anything.
Yeah.
So the minute I graduated, that bug hit me again. And I thought, I just need to do this. I need to either take it seriously and finish a manuscript, So I did. I wrote my first manuscript. Took me about 4 months. It was a historical romance. It's still under my bed. It will probably always be there, but it was my first, my first
I think I've got 3 that are under the bed. You get finished with it and you go, this is great. And then you write another one and you look back at the first one and go, not so much.
Yeah.
And then you write the next one and you go, oh, wow, those other 2 should never see the light of day.
Yeah, I kind of did that. Well, and and the second manuscript I wrote was a young adult. And that one I didn't really try to do much with. I don't know. I had with the first one, I sent it out. I tried to get an agent. I got tons of rejections, of course, and everything. And then I wrote the young adult. Didn't really do a lot with it. I ended up, I think I sent it to a couple of contests, but I didn't. I don't know that I finaled it. Maybe I did. I'm not sure. So anyway, then I started Charlie, the Charlie Davidson series, First Grave on the Right, and so I joined a critique group, and they did things a little differently. So I think what happened was, looking back, that 2020 hindsight, I think that just the messing with my process, I have a very specific process, kind of threw me off. So I got to chapter 6 and then I got stuck, and it sat there for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it just, so finally I decided to enter the Golden Heart for one reason and one reason only. And that was just to force myself to finish the book, because you have to have a finished manuscript. Yeah. And so I entered it and messed around. And then I realized that the deadline was coming up. So I had to write the next 2/3 of the book in 2 weeks. Got that done.
Oh, my word.
Fortunately, as you know, that's not actually judged in the Golden Heart. So yeah,
Thank goodness, right?
dodged a bullet with well, then I thought that I had missed the deadline. And so I was like, well, I entered, I was so mad. This is $50, wasted $50. I was so mad that I wasted that money. And then a friend told me that they're like, you still have 2 days and you have to get that in, because if you don't, and you entered, you're going to get in trouble. Now, looking back, what are they going to do? Golden Heart Police, are they going to come after me? Well, I was scared to death at that point. So I got that thing together and I overnighted it, and it was another $50 to overnight it. And I was so mad again. I was just so mad. I just wasted $100 just to force myself to finish this book that's never going to do anything, blah, blah. And of course, March 25th comes around, and I'm an interpreter at the time, and I'm interpreting, and we are in state testing. And you cannot have your phone in state testing, but where was my phone? Darynda had her phone. And somebody kept texting me, and I was like, I couldn't answer the phone because we're in state testing. And it's just me with my client one-on-one. And so finally I picked up my phone, and it was a text from my husband. And he said, you got a phone call, you finaled in some contest. And I wrote him back and I said, I haven't entered any contests. I don't know what you're talking about. He said, I don't know, it's like golden something or other.
That's how you found out?
That's how I found out. Oh. They kept trying to call me. I couldn't answer my phone, and I was just so freaked out, almost felt, but I had to wait because my client was testing. So I had to sit there all calm and
oh my goodness.
The minute she closed her book, I jumped up and I'm hugging on her and I started crying, and she started crying, my poor little girl. It was a tough day for her. But yeah, so ended up finaling in the Golden Heart. I sent out, that's when I decided, okay, now it's really time to get serious. I have to take advantage of this. So I sent out submissions or query letters. I couldn't think of the word. Query letters to probably 6 or 7 of my top agents, that my dream agent type people. And didn't hear anything. Absolutely
those crickets chirping like that is just awful, isn't it?
I think one wrote me back with a rejection, and I was like, well, thanks for that. At least they,
At least they responded.
And I was like, I don't get this. This is the Golden Heart. I'm supposed to get a response here. Well, one thing that I did was I changed the first line of my query letter, because I thought that, okay, I have to be professional. This cannot be my first line. So I changed it and I made it all professional sounding. And then I thought, if they're not going to answer me anyway, I put my first line back in, And so I basically researched for 3 days, ended up coming up with a list of 20 agents, sent out, 20 queries with my first line. And within 1 week, I had 8 offers.
Oh my word.
That's
so the rule of thumb here, people, is trust your instincts.
Trust your instincts. Yes, go with your gut instinct. And so I ended up, it was actually a crazy stressful week. And it was amazing, but really stressful. And I actually don't recommend getting any offers. But I ended up going with Alexandra Machinist, and I've been with her since, and I just absolutely adore her. We're such a perfect fit. So.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So then I actually met her that year. The RWA was in DC.
Yes.
Met her in DC, and ended up winning. And she wrote me and she said, I know we're going to wait because everybody goes on vacation and all this stuff.
Right.
I know we're going to wait, but people are asking me left and right. They really want this, so I'm going to go ahead and send it out. And I was like, okay, works for me. And about a week later, we had about, I think, at first we had about 5 houses interested, and then it dropped down to 3. And then 3, there were about 3 who were kind of, I wouldn't say bidding, because we didn't send it to the floor for auction, but they were like, making.
We're interested.
Right. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
And my agent was like, okay, we have an amazing offer from Jennifer Enderlin from St. Martin's. We can either accept this or we can send it to the floor for auction. What do you want to do? Because we were kind of really wanting Jennifer. And I'm like, no, I want Jennifer. So
She's wonderful, isn't she?
amazing. And yeah, so we went with her, and that's how it all got started.
That's so wonderful. And the first Grave on the Right came out, you finaled in 2009 and it came out in 2011,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So there are, for our lovely audience, there are 13 books in this series, and it wrapped up in 2019.
Yes.
Except I'm sure there will be other stories here and there that will pop up. And interesting, one of the things that I love too is in 2015, you actually wrote, is Brighter Than the Sun a novella, or is it a novel?
It is a novella.
It's a novella from the hero's point of view, looking back at how everything got started, which was so fascinating to me to look at, because I had been reading the series, to look at everything from his point of view. Because in the books, we mostly get it from her point of view. So it's a wonderful series. Why don't you talk about what the premise is so people will know?
Oh, sure. So, gosh, I haven't had to say this in so long. It's basically about a female private investigator who was born the Grim Reaper. And so she kind of like, she helps people who are stuck behind. She helps them finish their business, I guess you could say. Basically, it's mystery. So she solves their mysteries, and which I did not find out I wrote mystery until the third book. That was an eye opener. I did not know.
And for those of you who are very interested in this, it's got a romance in it though too. So
yes, quite
steamy.
Steamy romance, yes.
Yes.
Yep, love me some Reyes. So yeah, and basically, and then it just goes on until there's almost an apocalypse, and all this stuff happens. So it's fun. I knew when I started the series, I knew the beginning and I knew the ending, but all the stuff in the middle was new.
But that's so fun, because then you have, you can go on these side trails and all that sort of thing. And speaking of side trails, there are 2 Charlie series books that are in the 1001 Dark Night series, which is a ongoing sort of multi-author published series. Right. And so you did one in that series, I think in 2017, I think it was.
No, actually, it came out last year, 2020.
Oh, in 2020. And then there's another one coming in May of 20.
In May, yes.
May. Okay. So when this drops, it'll probably be out. So yeah.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Yes.
Yeah. So that will be the second 1001 Dark Nights, and it's in the Charlie world.
Yes.
Charlie. Okay. So that YA you mentioned resurfaced after you sold the first Charlie Davidson book.
Yeah.
And so your agent said, "What else you got?"
Exactly. When I told her, I said I had this historical romance, and she's like, "Yeah, we might not want to go there just yet." But I told her
too different.
right, exactly. But I told her about the YA, and she read it and loved it, and sent it to my editor, and my editor loved it, and yeah, they published it too. So that was fun, because a lot of this I probably write more YA than anything, and I always have, because I started when I was so young, and so I wrote young adult forever, and kids stories. But so I was really surprised that they wanted it. The problem came up, one little problem cropped up. So when I wrote Charlie, I didn't think I was going to do anything with the YA, so I stole everything from it. I capitalized my own work. So then when the young adult sold, like, I had stole the whole foundation of it. So I had to completely rebuild this world and what was going on. And so that was fun.
Well, but at least you already had character. Sometimes I think naming characters is the hardest thing. You already had character names. You sort of had a generalized idea of the world.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that series starts with Death and the Girl Next Door.
Yes.
And it's considered the Dark Light series. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did I get that right? Yeah. Now there are 3 books in that series.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. Now they run concurrent with the Charlie books.
Mhm. Yeah.
Are you planning that one? The last book in that one, I think, was out in what, 2014 or 15?
That's a good question. Yeah,
I don't know. I think I looked at it and it was 2014 or 15. Anyway, are you planning any more in that YA series?
not in that YA series, but I have other YAs that I'm working on.
Oh, cool.
Middle grade, I have a middle grade fantasy series I'm working on everything. You can ask me anything.
I love it. I love it. That's so wonderful. Now, did the Neverneath stories come first, or did the Betwixt women's fiction come?
So the Neverneath came first. And what happened with that was that I think I'm like most writers, I have a new idea every week.
Yeah.
You know? And some are, once you step back and you think about them, some of them could really work and some of them are horrible. But
right. It's like that idea that you wake up with in the middle of the night and you jot down and you think it's wonderful. And the next morning you go,
yeah,
what was I smoking?
not so much. That might not work.
But then every now and again you get a gem.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I just had so many story ideas and so many stories outlined and so many stories started that I decided I wanted to do this Neverneath. So the Neverneath is kind of like it's our everyday world with the paranormal aspects, and it can be anything. It can be vampires or time travelers, whatever. And yeah, so I just did that as an outlet for all these stories that I want to write that I don't have time to get to. And I thought, well, maybe if I just made them novellas, it would give me more time. Of course, they get longer and longer as I go, but
yeah, familiar with that problem. So then Charlie is very much, it's mystery, but it's very much a romance with the ongoing couple. Betwixt is women's fiction.
Yes, it's what we are. Yeah, the group that got together, we decided it's paranormal women's fiction, and they invited me. I was the last one to be involved. And it was such an honor. It was such a cool, because it really forced me to finally learn how to indie publish my own work, learn how to format, learn how to market, learn how to upload, all of that stuff, and figure out pre-orders and order book covers, everything that goes along with it. And so it really forced me into that. And that's why I even though the Neverneath actually came out a little bit before Betwixt, it was the first Neverneath story was kind of like my test. I was testing the waters to see if I could do it, that sort of thing. Right. And then when Betwixt came out, I'm with a group called the Fab 13, and all 13 of us put out a paranormal women's fiction novel on the same day.
Oh, wow, fun.
This huge push. We did advertising. Our Facebook group, they started the Facebook group. These are the most amazing women writers and marketers that I've ever met. And that Facebook group grew to 10,000 in like not even a month. And we had
That's outstanding.
It was amazing. Yeah, and so we all and the only like rules or whatever you call it was that it had to be an older heroine and it had to be paranormal. And so that's and we all have completely different stories, some are really funny, some are more serious. Yeah, so.
That's great. Now they're women's fiction, so they do have a romance thread or not?
I don't think all of them do, but I think most of them do, of the 13. And mine definitely does. There's definitely a romance thread there. But it is a little less so than some others.
Right.
Yeah. But I didn't even know if it was enough. I entered it, the first one, Betwixt, in the Vivian, and it finaled. So I'm like,
congratulations.
Maybe there was enough romance thread for
yes. I'm so pleased for you. Congratulations. I read the list and then I completely, in one ear gained speed and out the other. So that's so wonderful. Now, one of the things, talking about the Facebook group, one of the things that's been so fun about your Charlie Davidson series is the audience that has built around it. And your group calls itself the Grimlets.
Grimlets, yeah.
Which tickles me to death. Where did the name come from?
Oh gosh, so I had
because of course she's the Grim Reaper, so I get it, and but
exactly. I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure. They came up with it. One of my assistants, Dana, and then the administrators came up with the name. I'm not sure which one came up with it in specific, but I fell in love with it. They were like, "What about Grimlets?" So I'm like, "Yes."
It totally works.
It is, yeah.
Well, it's a big group, though. It's very, very popular.
Yeah, and I'm so pleased. I love them. They're like they're so sweet and caring and funny, and oh my gosh, we just have fun.
Super, super encouraging.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, totally supportive, super encouraging. Now, how much did everybody celebrate, you and the Grimlets included, when Third Grave hit the New York Times bestseller list?
They were pretty excited. And actually at that time, I think that's when we were very first getting started.
Yes.
So yes. Yeah, and yeah, we were just over the moon. I couldn't believe it. I was so happy, and and then you get flowers, and it was very cool.
Did your editor tell you, or did you actually see it?
Actually, my agent told me.
Ah.
Yeah, my agent told me, and I was like, wait, does that mean I get to say I'm a New York Times bestselling author? And she's like, yes, it does.
You now have a new first name, New York Times bestselling author.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And I know that New York Times, the USA Today, the Rita, the Golden Heart, they all are important. They all feel great being nominated for the Vivian. The Daphne, I know that you won the Daphne at one point. The Daphne is the Daphne du Maurier Award, which is one of the suspense chapter for Romance Writers of America. But what do you feel has been one of your greatest rewards or high moments in terms of the Charlie series? I mean, was it hard to leave it?
It was hard to leave it. And, when I was writing the last book, even though I knew that there were going to be other stories, and then I'm also doing a spinoff with Beep and Osh, the daughter of my two characters. That was the hardest book I've ever written. I cried through the whole thing. I cried so hard. Really just the greatest thing is just getting messages from my readers telling me how much they love the books. You can't beat that.
No, you can't. No, you can't. One of the things I love about it, I love the humor, and I think it's one of your taglines is, well, that didn't go the way I planned. And all of your chapter headings, I looked forward to reading. Each chapter has a very wry or sarcastic chapter heading. And I looked forward almost as much to the chapter headings as I did to the books, because they always made me laugh. And I enjoyed that so much.
Thank you. Yeah. I don't make most of them up. There are real memes out there. And I didn't know if I could use them. So before I did that, I did a whole bunch of research to figure out, and I even contacted a copyright lawyer, and he was amazing. And he just free. He didn't even try. He told me, said, you absolutely can, because only a certain amount of words can be copyrighted and blah, blah, blah. But the design is different than the actual words. And it was very interesting. But yeah, so I get so much of that. And what I feel bad now, because I try to say, this is an internet meme, or this was a bumper sticker or a t-shirt, whatever.
Right.
But now a lot of them are attributed to me. And I feel really bad about that, because they're like, there's one on a menu somewhere that's from one of my books with my name on it. There's one really big in a library somewhere that says my name. Like, no, I really didn't write that. I feel really bad.
It's in my book, but I didn't originate. Yeah,
exactly. That's okay.
They are wonderful, though. I can see why people, and I know a lot of the Gremlins have different ones of them on T-shirts, and I've seen them at cons with different things on the T-shirts, and I saw somebody, I think at Coastal Magic, with like a T-shirt that on the back had like 3 or 4 of them, all of which I laughed out loud about, because I was like, yeah, I remember that one.
They're fun.
Now, you have also started a new series that the first one came out in 2020, I think, or 21, A Bad Day for Sunshine. And this is the Sunshine Vikram series, and it is set in New Mexico.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about who Sunshine is and why she's in New Mexico.
Okay. Well, you know, it's really funny because my agent, after I finished the Charlie series, my agent and I were calling back and forth. We're trying to figure out what I'm going to write next. And I'm pitching everything because I have like literally hundreds of story ideas.
Right.
I'm not going to run out of story ideas. So I'm pitching everything to her and I'm getting all this stuff right. I think we had like 2 or 3 conversations. And the last conversation, we were calling my editors the next day. So Jennifer Enderlin, who was my editor for many books, she is now the president of St. Martin's Press.
Yeah.
So
yeah, she got a bit, what is it? It's like 6 months ago, she got a big promotion.
yes,
Go Jennifer.
Huge, yes. And
she's awesome.
She's amazing. She really is.
And very well deserved.
Yes, yes, exactly. She has such a good personality for being, you know, in this very high position, and she's just the sweetest thing. So basically she kind of like still buys my books type thing, but then I have a different editor named her name is also Alexandra, like my agent, Alexandra Seeholster, and oh my God, she's amazing. So we were going to call the next day, and I mean, I had pitched everything to her, absolutely everything. I didn't know. I was like, what else? And she's like, no, I'm not really. She said, I don't want to hurt your feelings. No, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I'm a good girl. We're writers with thick skins. We can,
yes,
we can do
have
it.
to have it.
Absolutely. You absolutely have to. And so she, like, I had pitched everything. She said, well, what else do you have? And I had nothing in front of me, you know.
Right.
And something that I had thought of years ago just popped into my head. And I said, you know, I have this story about, it's kind of like the Gilmore Girls meets Fargo. And she was like, that's it. Oh, okay.
What a way to describe it. Oh my word.
And she's like, tell me about that. Well, that was pretty much all I had.
So you're making it up on the spot, right?
I made it up on the spot. I totally did the usual suspects where I had a notepad and it was like Sunshine Press or Sunshine Printing. And I was like, oh, okay, well, it's about a female sheriff in a small town in New Mexico named Sunshine. I literally just made it up. She loved it. We called the next day. My editors loved it. And we sold it right then and there. And
that's outstanding.
It was just crazy. And the reason, though, is that my agent loves that I'm from New Mexico. And so she kind of wanted this story to be set in New Mexico, like the Charlie books are set in Albuquerque.
Right.
But I wanted this in a small town. And so she just wanted it kept in New Mexico. I'm like, okay, because I know it since I live here.
Yeah.
Works for me.
Well, and it's one of the things that, you know, I live on the East Coast. So, but I've been to New Mexico, but it's one of those things where it's such a different part of the world. It's such a different part of the country. And it has such it's a completely different flavor than someplace like San Francisco or Portland or Charleston or DC and so and you portray it so well. I can see why she'd want you to kind of stay in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
But she's a completely different character than Charlie or any of the other. I haven't read the YA, but than any of the other stuff that you've written. She's completely different. I'm
glad. That's what I was going for. Because I was worried that people were going to say, oh, this is just a non-paranormal Charlie book. You know?
No, it's not.
Thank you. That makes me very happy. Yeah, so it's just straight mystery. It's not paranormal. I mean, there's like a teensy tiny touch, but
well, I don't think you can live in the desert Southwest without having a teensy and write about it without having teensy
tiny touch. Exactly.
But it's really more of a mystery, murder mystery.
Yes.
And it kind of, and if I remember correctly, it sort of intersects with her becoming the sheriff, which she didn't really expect to have happen.
Right.
She sort of got railroad awarded into the job.
Yes. She
And
was entered into the election unbeknownst to her. Her meddling parents got her elected and kind of forced her to come back to the small town.
so there's a way, parents, if you need to get your kids to come back home, nominate them to be sheriff. It's a piece of cake. And she figures, and Sunshine figures, okay, I'll do it. And it'll be the easiest job ever because nothing ever happens.
Right.
And then, of course, stuff happens.
The first day, just all goes to hell.
And it is a rollicking ride. It is a fabulous book. Now, how many do you have planned in this series? I know the second one comes out July of this year, right?
July, yep.
July.
And this is just a trilogy right now.
Okay.
I did promise, so I can't say who to this day. It's like the weirdest thing, but I will say that it's sold to a major television company. And the company asked if I could do, like if they do it, if it gets picked up, could I write more than 3? And I'm like, dude, of course I can. That's not even a question.
Gosh, can I? Just don't know.
So, if that were to happen, it could become more, but right now it's just a trilogy. Yeah.
Right. So the second book is called A Good Day for Chardonnay. And like we said, it'll be out this summer.
Yes.
And then at some future date, there will be a third one. And you said you already had the title for the third one, right?
Yes. It's A Hard Day for a Hangover.
That just cracks me up. That's great. Well, as you've gone on this journey now, how do you feel you've grown as a writer? How do you feel like First Grave is different from A Bad Day for Sunshine? Obviously, the characters are different and everything. What is your process and how has it evolved from when you first started at the Tasty Freeze to now?
So, one of the things that I tell people, the more you know, the harder it gets, I feel like. It's just one of those things. I feel like the first Charlie books were just so much easier to write because I was so clueless,
Yeah, we don't know what we don't know. And then suddenly once we do, we're like, oh, crap.
And and always, I'm always learning and taking classes. And to this day, I just took a class this weekend. And so, but again, the more you know, the harder it gets. And then I like second guess myself and I question everything. But I will say, when I go back, I have this really bad habit and I'm trying to get over it, but once something is published, I don't reread it. Yeah. I just can't. But I feel like that I should, because, especially if you're writing a series, you have to, you can't remember everything. I do actually have an incredible continuity editor that I hired just because I can't remember everything. So she remembers things for me, but even the two of us together, we can let things slip. And so, but I will say I did start reading First Grave again, and it wasn't painful.
That's good.
I thought it was going to be painful. I mean, I see so many, all I see is mistakes and what I would do better now and differently. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't as painful as I thought. So I was kind of like, okay, maybe I do need to reread these before I start the spinoff, But my process hasn't changed that much. So I'm a huge plotter. Mm-hmm. I outline like crazy, and I think my outlines they're usually 40 to 60 pages long by the time I'm finished. And I'm writing every day now with a friend of mine, Jeffy Kennedy, who writes fantasy romance. Mm-hmm. And we write every day together. And she is she hates this word, but I'm going to say it anyway. She's a pantser. Mm-hmm. Literally, I've never met anyone like her. Like, she just starts writing and she'll just get 3,000 words in one morning.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
so
Oh,
So for those of you who don't know, plotters are people who plot it all out, and pantsers are people who fly by the seat of their pants and just write the story.
yes, yes. And
So yay her. I've had to become a hybrid of those two because otherwise I never got anything done and just would start with the new shiny.
yes,
But
exactly. And that's what she gets on to me. She's like, you spend too much time outlining and all of this. And I'm like, but it's my process, And she's like, yeah, your process is great, but you realize how much more you could get done if you quit doing that. So I'm like, I know. So I am actually trying to kind of scale back on that. She does have some really good points. You don't want to mess with anyone's process, and she's not,
no, you
not
don't.
trying to do that. But I am trying to scale back a little bit and maybe not outline quite so much, just to get more written. But yeah,
I don't know. Sometimes, if that's what makes the words flow, you don't mess with the process.
right, yeah.
But
And
I'm like you. I take classes to try to get better, and I will always try something.
yes, yes,
And if it doesn't, the thing I had to learn is if it didn't work, I had to let it go.
right. Right, exactly, exactly. And even with, like, I've written hundreds of short stories, hundreds. So I'm writing a short story right now for Suspense Magazine, and I have never had. This is the hardest thing. It's only 10,000 word short story. I should have had that done in 2 days. I am having I've spent like a month on it. I have restarted 5 times. The first 4 versions I've completely thrown out, and now I'm on a completely different story. I finally had to give up on that. And I'm still only 5,000 words into it. It's just ridiculous. And I feel like it's because I didn't outline it first, but I don't normally outline short stories. That's the one thing that I can just sit down and start writing, and they usually, come out. But maybe I should have with this one. I don't know. I don't know what my problem is.
Well, yeah, the ones that trip you up and prove that there's always a something that'll muck with the process or the rule, don't start there. That's mine usually is I usually start a book a certain way, and then there's every now and again that outlier that starts someplace else, and you're like, wait, I'm over here, and I usually start over there. So you mentioned Suspense Magazine. I know you also, like you said, you write short stories. So you do write every day, you said.
I do, yes. I'm pretty good now. It took me a while to get to this point. I do recommend writing at least every day of the week, just to get into a groove and get into a habit.
Yeah.
Writing is a big part is habit. So yeah.
Yeah, or at least for those of us who want to try to make a living at it, it should be.
Exactly. Yes. As they say, treat it like a job, yeah.
So what do you feel is your, what do you see as going forward? What's next for you? So because I'm in the process too, I know that the July book, the book that comes out in July, is already in.
Yes.
So what are you working on now?
Right now, besides the short story that's just giving me fits, I'm working on A Hard Day for a Hangover. I've already written the synopsis. My editor that's what I do. I write a synopsis, send it to my editor. She approves it, and then I get started. So that'll be next.
Do you like the synopsis process?
I like the synopsis process because it gets me into the story.
Right.
If I have to write a synopsis after I've already written the manuscript or the book, that's horrible. That's like the 9th level of hell. But I have learned that if you write the synopsis before you even start the story,
It's a roadmap.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so much easier. Yeah. And it gets me into that frame of mind. I kind of know where I'm going because I have to know where I'm going. So
yeah. That was something that very important in my process, that I finally learned that the best way for me to write most efficiently and effectively was, I have to know where to start, to know where I'm ending. As a pantser, I really don't have to know all that stuff in the middle. I'll figure that out. Do have to know where I'm going.
Yeah, I do too. I have to know where I'm going. And I think that's part of my problem with this story is that I had the opening, I had this great suspenseful opening, and well, I hope it is. We'll see. But I didn't know where I was going. And so I just kept going in this direction, and that wasn't working in that direction. So yeah, I'm just I'm one of those people. I have to know where I'm going.
Yeah. So plotting is for you, so you're working on A Hard Day for a Hangover. What's after that? What other things are you working on?
So I have the next on the list is called Midnight and Magic, I think,
Ooh.
or Moonlight and Magic. I think that's the first one. And that's so my indie series betwixt and between. The first three were from Defiance, my heroine Defiance. I'm going to have three trilogies because there are three charmlings, which is a special kind of witch in this world. And so the next three are Annette, the next charmling, and then the next three will be the third charmling. So the next one in that is next. And then I'm also pitching two different series to my editor, my agent and my editor. And I'm going with the spinoff of Charlie, which is Beepinasha Stories. Hopefully that'll just be a trilogy. That's kind of where I'm headed. And then the next straight kind of more humorous mystery. Obviously, I have to have humor in everything.
Yes. And you do it so well, so I appreciate that you put it in there.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so then I'm going to pitch a new one, and I already have two different ones. I have to decide between which ones I want to pitch. And then there's more Neverneath stories coming, and I'm never at a shortage of ideas again. So not a problem.
I think that's always funny when you have someone. I've heard people ask this question of authors at conventions, or when you have a special time with a big name author or something like that, and they say, "How do you get your ideas?" And I'm always like, "How do you stop them from coming long enough to write anything down?" And it sounds very much like that's your case.
Exactly. And my best ideas come to me when I'm like on deadline and I'm in full panic mode. That's when all these shiny things appear.
Right.
These shiny orbs, and I want to go write this and I want to go write that, and you can't. So yeah, I have lots and lots of notes for new stories.
So how do you deal with that when you're in the throes of the deadline and the new shiny comes up? How do you deal with that? I actually had someone ask me this just the other day, so I'm going to ask you.
Okay, well, I just write it down. I just make a note, or I have like probably 100 voice memos in my phone. And I just to get it out there, just so I know that it's still there and my mind can stop thinking about it and go back to what it should be focused on.
I'm so glad we gave the same answer.
Good, there you go.
You have to write the shiny down so the shiny will quit bugging you. Just enough to get the idea on paper so you don't forget it.
Shiny away and go back to,
And go back to the work. Go back to the work. That's the only way I ever get anything done is, put the shiny away.
Yes, exactly.
Well, the time has just absolutely flown. Thank you so much for being with us at ConTinual. Why don't you tell us where we can find you on the web, and your groups and things like that?
Oh, absolutely. So it's just Darynda.com. Really simple. I have an amazing new website. Oh, I'm so in love with it. That's kind of geared toward the Sunshine series. And then in Facebook, I either have my author profile or the Grimlets. You can look up the Grimlets, and please join, even if you aren't a reader, because this group is so funny. They just post the funniest stuff. It's awesome.
They do.
And again, and on Instagram and Twitter, and I guess I'm everywhere. Thank God for my assistants, because they keep me up on all of this stuff.
That's wonderful. Well, again, we're so glad to have you with us here on ConTinual. I'm sure we will see you again. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. I'm Jeanne Adams, your host, and we'll see you on the web.
Thank you.